So tell me a little bit about clear vision. How is that important when it comes to personal branding or a thought leadership platform, so to speak?
Yeah. So I think, Simon Sinek long ago said, start with why, right? And then everyone was like, okay, well, what's my why? And it became such a catchphrase. What's my why?
Right.
But then I'm like, okay, so then what do I do with it? And how do I build on this? And how do I actually move it into the world? So that part is the personal branding and thought leadership. But I take my clients through a super specific framework that I found has worked time and time again.
Welcome to the Turbo Branding Show, where we will help you ignite your growth by leveraging your brand to grow faster, easier, and more successfully. You'll discover insightful conversations from our powerful guests who are founders, CEOs, and advisors for thriving businesses who are on sharing how they have successfully built strong brands to help you expand and grow. I'm your host, Sue Kirchner, and today we're welcoming Lisa Guillot to the show. Let's delve into today's episode and turbocharge your brand. First, thank you so much for being here, Lisa. I'm excited to have you on to talk about personal branding.
Oh, yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Excellent. Excellent. So before we jump into the questions, let me tell you why Lisa is such a great guest to talk about personal branding. So Lisa helps visionary people become thought leaders. A best-selling author and certified transformational coach, she guides clients in finding and living their clear vision through her proprietary Clear Vision framework. Lisa works with senior executives at Fortune 500 companies, marketing and tech leaders, as well as ambitious entrepreneurs looking to do something different. She effortlessly blends thought leadership, personal branding, spiritual wealth, and inspired action to create influence and lasting impact for her clients. Welcome. Did I miss anything in that, Lisa, that you would like to share?
No, you captured it all perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So, all right. So we're going to dig in to talk about personal branding, and then we'll cover a little bit too about how does that compare to corporate or organizational branding. But first, I want to hear all about your brand journey. So what is your brand? How did you get to this point in time? And what do you want people to know about you?
Well, let's see. I started my career in San Francisco during the dot-com boom and the dot-com crash. So I was actually working for a company and we helped Pottery Barn Kids come online for the first time in 1999. Yes. And it was with this company called March 1st. They were the back-end developers. And at that time, the dot-com boom had crashed and we were the only people in this huge warehouse space. And this was our very last client that we had to get up online. And so some of the same little like tweaks and moments, the little illustrations that Pottery Barn Kids still uses today were ones that were developed way back then. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then we moved. I was in San Francisco. That's where I went to school, worked for a couple of years, but I'm a Midwestern gal at heart. And so I came back to Chicago, which I still now here live in Chicago. Love it. Wish the winters weren't so cold, but we got to take the good with the bad.
Exactly. If the winters were better, everyone would live here, is my opinion.
Exactly. So I'm going to take it. And I've been here ever since. I've been laid off twice. You know what? Because in the creative industries, this is what happens.
Yeah.
It's always like the first to go. But it was a blessing, to be honest, because in 2009, I was laid off from Paper Source, where I was their senior design manager for their catalog and website, doing everything from photo shoots to copy to production to making the printer work when it wouldn't work.
Yes.
And at that moment, then I was like, okay, like this is the moment that I am being called to become an entrepreneur. So that year is when I started my brand strategy studio, Step Brightly. And we worked with companies helping retail, creating books, logos, websites, like everything, right? Yeah. And as you know, it all bases around one vision, one idea for the company. And then how does that spread out through all its materials? And so I did that for a very long time. About 2015, I started to notice my own personal transformation I was going through in my life and how I was being in terms of my own personal leadership, because I think everybody who becomes a life coach has their own personal breakdown and then they have a breakthrough and they're like, this is what I want to do. So
Yeah.
that happened. But simultaneously, I started to notice for my branding clients is that they would come to a moment in their projects when we were just about to hit publish or post or go to print,
Yeah.
and they would throw something in the way. Like whether it was, I don't want to buy that last little plugin that's going to make my whole website work.
Mm.
No, I don't want to spend the $100 to make that happen. And I'm like, really? Like, but what I noticed was whatever little thing they were throwing in the way of launching wasn't about the design. It wasn't about the product. It was about them as a founder
Hmm.
getting nervous,
Yeah.
right? Not wanting to launch, worried about being vulnerable, worried about failing, whatever it was coming up for them. And that is all straight up mindset. And so I was like, okay, what if I were to take the same brand strategy model that I've been using with my business clients and actually apply that to humans and help them find their clear vision and help them become somebody who is embedded in the story that they want to share with the world, the impact they want to make, and help them build a strategy to do that and become thought leaders. My clients actually go on to oftentimes build second careers,
Hmm.
start businesses, or like make quantum leaps in their current career path. They write books, start podcasts, speak on stages. And so there's really a lot that is in alignment with
Yeah.
both branding out there in the real world, business to consumer, but also personal branding. And I am so really into this like personal part of that process.
Yeah. No, I love that. And a couple thoughts as you were going through is first, you worked at some pretty cool companies that had some just super fun design, right? So
Yeah.
Pottery Barn Kids, paper stores. If you don't have paper stores in your area, they do just beautiful design in both what they sell and how they market themselves. And so that's awesome that you were able to kind of cut your teeth, so to speak, in those kinds of environments. But and I love this, how you shared where, yeah, everyone, you get to a point where it's like an epiphany, where it's like, oh, yeah, maybe I'm supposed to go out and do my own thing. And then I'm going to go do my own thing. But then what am I going to do in my own thing? And, move on from there. So, um, you spoke a little bit about who your ideal target markets are. And you talked a lot about, executives and fear factor. But one of the things you mentioned to me prior was you work with a lot of creative people.
Mhm.
And my question to you is, as part of your personal brand, since you're so creative, does like attract like?
That's a good question. I think it does. I think particularly for people who are in leadership coaching,
Hmm.
we just need to be about 2 or 3 chapters ahead of our client. So people will see, oh, I have a podcast. I have this book that I wrote. I show up in a way on social media that's very confident. Why? Because I practice and I've been doing it for a very long time and I'm consistent and I show up.
Yeah.
So people in creative industries, while they can like knock it out of the park with an award-winning campaign or launch a movie in a really big way, or any of these small pieces, they can totally kill it in their work. But when they reflect that back to themselves and be like, well, how can I do that for myself? Like that's where things get wonky and weird.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I could say that then they'll look at me, they'll be like, well, Lisa, she knows how to do it. So then they'll give me a ring.
Give you a ring. Awesome. Awesome. So, quick question for you. When it comes to branding, one of the things you need to do is to kind of stand out from your competition, right? You don't necessarily have to be better, but you have to be different, right? So, I'm going to ask you how you're different, maybe from some other coaches who might do something similar, but I want to get to, you told me something recently about something you did with tarot cards in a meeting. And so tell that story because I thought that was really different. So,
Okay, yes. So, how am I different? Well, I think the blend of the brand strategy and the branding background, plus transformational leadership coaching. I think in the coaching arena, anybody can call themselves a coach, right? Even if you just coach your son's little league team, you can be an executive coach. It really, like, there is no regulation whatsoever. So I am a big proponent of hiring and finding certified coaches.
Hmm.
I'm a certified coach through the International Coaching Federation. So I take like great pride in coaching in that way because it creates really big breakthroughs in mindset and who you're being. Now, partner that with thought leadership and personal branding. I think that's what makes me different.
Yeah.
So then I start to weave in tools that I love and I like to play and have fun with, because if you're building a personal brand that's super serious, not fun, like why would you ever do that? Like might as well make it fun
Right.
and celebrate. So one of the things that I find super fun are tarot cards. I should have brought my deck up here. We could have like pulled a card, but
Yeah.
what's so interesting to me about tarot cards is that it is, I mean, an age-old card playing game from like the 1400s with an enormous amount of Christian mythology and the symbology of the card. You can tell a story that goes on for hours. Now, if you pull a card and put two or three of those stories together, it starts to tell and showcase a vision.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my clients, like I said, they're VPs, SVPs, executive level in entertainment companies, or, founders of their own successful businesses. They are tired of making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
They got that decision fatigue.
Yeah.
So if I start to notice that, like in a conversation, I'll be like, well, let's pull a card, see what it says. Let's ask the cards. Whether people believe it or not, it's a really fun way to just look at possibility and play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people will be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So the story I think I was sharing with you was a couple weeks ago. A woman in an advertising agency who's in client services hired me to go read, I think it was about people's cards in the middle of the day. This is one of her most favorite clients that
Yeah.
they work with. And so I just went in down to the Starcom building on Wacker around 3 p.m., sat down and read all of these like top executives' cards, and they just had so much fun with it. So it was a really great way to just kind of like break up the monotony of what it means to be super serious and have a super serious role. And we
Yeah.
don't always have to be that way in business.
Right, exactly. No, I love that. Anytime you can inject fun into something, not only does it make it fun, especially when you're working on really tough stuff, right? So, being introspective and figuring out, your personal brand and, what drives you and things like that. You think it'd be easy and it's not, and it gets hard and it gets frustrating. So anytime you can inject fun was great. I remember once I was it was a meeting that Lego was pitching. And they were inviting all creatives to come and join their play session, right? Because it was something that they were trying to sell kits of Legos that people who were running events and meetings and things like that would buy these kits and use Legos in their meetings and stuff. So it was like, oh, okay, let's go and we'll check this out and see what they're doing. And it was fascinating because basically what they asked you to do, and then I adopted that and started doing it with clients a while ago, was you had to use Legos and build something that shows the end result of how you help people. And it was just like people sat for 45 minutes staring at the wall and just thought and thought and thought and thought. And then other people just started building, like didn't even think about it, but just started playing with the bricks and, putting that together. But at the end, it was amazing what people came up with. Like mine was for branding, I built a little guy standing in front of a mirror. And it's like, because
Ooh,
I like to
nice.
say that I can help you see yourself as others see you. And you need to have
Mm-hmm.
that reflected back. And I'm the person who can help do that. So, but it took me a while to get to that. It's like, number one, how do you visually, try and show the impact that you can have? But then how do you build it with Legos, which are completely,
The
there's
little
no
tiny little bricks.
circles and soft
There's no
edges.
circles.
Yeah. So it
Oh,
was,
okay,
it was
I
fun.
have to share the same story. Oh my God,
Yeah.
this is so kismet.
Yeah.
I first off, I love that idea of the mirror because 100%. I have a client who is in an entertainment company in West Hollywood, and same thing. They were given Legos. It might have been a very similar meeting to yours.
Yeah.
They were given Legos and they were asked to build something and then share it with the team. And I was like, oh, so what'd you build? And he and I had been working together for, an extended period of time. And one of the tools that I take my clients through is to find your life purpose, like literally your life purpose.
Yeah.
And then you move to make an impact and bring your clear vision to the world. But first, we have to find that little nugget. And oftentimes, your life purpose is like one or two words.
Yeah.
And his word was that he is a beacon for others.
Nice.
Just like imagine a lighthouse, and all you got to do is just be that lighthouse, and you just shine your light on other things, other people, other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he did. And he shared, well, I'm a beacon. This is what my purpose is. And he got it in a heartbeat. Why? Because when you do that work and you're willing to look within yourself, you don't have to sit there and stare at the wall for 45 minutes, right?
Yep.
These are you've got the idea because it's already embedded into what you know. So that is such a fun and funny exercise that you did. And your idea was brilliant. And I think also the people who do this work, others can see it and feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was a great storytelling tool because you had to explain why you chose to build what you did with your Legos. And it was great. So anyway, let's build on that a little bit. But so you help your clients obviously identify and build their own personal or even thought leadership brands. So tell me a little bit about clear vision. How is that important when it comes to personal branding or a thought leadership platform, so to speak?
Yeah. So I think, Simon Sinek long ago said, start with why, right? And then everyone was like, okay, well, what's my why? And it became such a catchphrase. What's my why?
Right.
But then I'm like, okay, so then what do I do with it? And
Right.
how do I build on this? And people will often say, well, follow your passion or what's your life purpose? And these are all things that are good to know. But
Mm-hmm.
what I really want to know is, okay, so now I found it. And then now what do I do with it? And how do I actually move it into the world? So that part is the personal branding and thought leadership. But I take my clients through a super specific framework that I found has worked time and time again. And CLEAR is actually an acronym. So, and it follows, you'll know this, Sue, because it very much follows the creative process and the branding process. So the C in CLEAR stands for clear concept. As designers, we'll create 3 or 4 concepts, share them with our clients, see what works best, and move forward.
Right.
So similarly, for yourself, you need to brainstorm. What is it that I want to create? Why is this important to me? What do I want to bring forth into the world? What conversations do I want to be a part of in the future?
Right.
So that's your clear concept. Then we move to L, legit and long lasting. And, this has got to be too legit to quit. Right? We cannot have a fleeting idea that in 3 months from now, we're going to be tired of and just let it go by the wayside.
Right.
We have to stay connected to this clear vision for 3 to 5 to 10 years. I was talking to a client of mine on my podcast, and she and I worked together for about a year. It's now been 3 years, and her vision has come to life.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not like a one and done moment. So it's got to be too legit to quit.
Yep.
E, expanded energy. We need to personally be able to expand what we're willing to be with. We have to be with so much more outside influence and still be able to maintain our inner peace. This is what I call being spiritually wealthy. I do a lot of energetic work. Tarot, is one of them, but also dealing with your energy centers, really working on everything from the food that you are putting into your body, your sleep schedule, how you meditate, whatever works best for you, like we get that on lockdown.
Yeah.
A, aspirational results. So this kind of follows, the SMART goals, but I think in SMART goals, they refer to it as achievable results. And I think if we knew how to achieve your clear vision, we would have already done it. So instead, we set aspirational goals and we aim for that like 3 years out, for example.
Yeah.
Like my client yesterday, she's now single, lives in Europe, quit her 9 to 5 job that she had entirely climbed the corporate ladder to the top.
Yeah.
And now she's a business strategist and mentor to women founders who make 7 to 8 figures.
Okay.
Super fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so aspirational and then R, rooted in celebration. Again, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? So every piece, every step that you take needs to have a celebration associated with it, because that's going to reinforce the learning and progress and confidence that we're building upon. We don't need to make this harder. We want to make it both easier, filled with more peace, and fun.
Yeah.
So that's the framework that I take my clients through. And then, yes, we've got roadmaps, we've got plans, we've got how this all rolls out in terms of the strategy piece, but we have got to get that first nugget in place. Otherwise, we're just flailing.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I love the rooted in celebration because that's something people forget. And when you're on a journey, it's a long journey, right? And building a brand, whether it's personal or whether it's organizational, it's going to take a while. So you have to build those celebrations in order to motivate, inspire, and keep people going. So one of the things I talk to some of my client CEOs about is especially internal branding. And when you're looking to build brand ambassadors within your company, any one of your employees can be a brand ambassador, right? And one of the things that I say is how to recognize them or how to really bring the brand to life is to in staff meetings or special, meetings is actually celebrate who's delivering the brand the best because it
Mm.
gives you an opportunity to reinforce what the brand is internally to your people. B, it gives accolades and celebration and kudos to the person who's really living it and delivering it to customers and things like that. And it's all just inspirational for everybody else. So you need to have these wins built into longer journeys. And so I love that in your, particular framework. So there's a question that I have, or maybe the audience might have is, okay, so what's the difference between a personal brand and thought leadership, right? So you see a lot of articles about, are you really a thought leader? And what does it take to be a thought leader? And so in your mind or working with your clients, what do you say and or what have you seen about the difference between the two?
Yes. Personal branding, I think, has kind of gotten a bad rap in the past because, like, well, why do I need that? I don't want to talk about myself. And we just kind of throw up blocks.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think a lot of leaders are really recognizing, oh no, I need to develop my platform. What do I stand for?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I express that in a way that's going to move me forward to more peace, more ease, more wealth, whatever it is you want to generate?
Right.
So that can be a personal brand. Now, the reason I kind of keep going personal brand, like I'm connecting the two, is a lot of times people will have personal thoughts. That's fine. We can share them on Facebook. But then we need the brand part, which is actually the strategy and all of the pieces that are going to make it something that we can put out into the world, be proud of, and bring our people in. So you
Yeah.
have got to provide both the personal and the branding part, right? And
Yep.
I think that kind of starts to separate branding from organizational branding or
Mm-hmm.
business branding, right? So
Right.
the personal is pretty much straight up mindset.
Right.
And then you bring it in with branding. All right. So if we do the same thing with thought leadership, we have got thoughts. And if you only think thoughts, cool, right? You can be
Yeah.
a poet, you can be a philosopher.
Right.
But then we got to bring in the leadership part. And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a leader of a company. You need to be an executive with a team. This can also be personal leadership
Mm-hmm.
or what you have become a specialist in. And so when you bring together the thought plus the leadership, you need to build a platform to highlight your expertise,
Yes.
your vision, right? And so when somebody becomes and I don't want to say just becomes a thought leader because you can't just do that. You need to have the strategy and the pieces in place to do so.
Right.
And when you begin to express yourself as a thought leader over time and you express your vision in a clear way, well, guess what? You become a visionary
Mm-hmm.
because we look up to people because we can see their vision. And that's because they have a clear vision and it's resonating with us
Right.
in a big, bold way.
Right. No, I love that. I love that differentiation. And yeah, I mean, thought leadership to me also is kind of like branding in that you can say you have a brand and you can say you are a thought leader, but really that specific designation it resides in the minds of your stakeholders, right? You can build a thought leadership platform, but until someone else thinks you're a thought leader, then you're
Hmm.
not. You're just someone who's sharing ideas, right? So I love that and being able to articulate, the difference between the two. So now once you have this, let's talk a little bit more about how you work with your clients. Is that once you have that clear vision defined, what do you do with it? How do you
Right.
communicate it? Do you go on LinkedIn? Do you create a show? What is it that you
Yeah,
tell people they need to do to get their thoughts out there?
exactly. Well, and I think this starts to play into what your strengths are. I wouldn't want a client to go speak on stages if that's the last thing they want to do. A lot of my clients will come to me because they recognize like one of two things. One is I'm spinning, I climbed the corporate ladder, I don't know what I want to do now. And so that requires a lot of that deep inside work first, and then we move it out to whatever they want to create. A lot of clients come and they say, I need a personal brand. I want to build my thought leadership. Okay, right? And then we're off to the races there.
Yeah.
We have got to nail the personal part, we've got to nail the thought part, and then we move it into strategy. And this is really like very similar to how you would roll out a campaign, how you would roll out a movie, whatever it is. You've got to plan for it. And this is where, again, the personal part will come in and get kind of wonky sometimes. If a client wants to be somebody who speaks on stages, but never actually, puts their hat in the ring for an upcoming conference
Hmm.
or says yes to a panel talk or puts themselves into the room where that might actually happen, well, then we've got a mindset issue. And so it's working with my clients to see what they want to create and then build the resilience, the confidence, and the mindset, right? That's that expanded energy
Right.
to follow through with the strategy piece.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here now and talk about the fact that what I love about what you do and what I do is you're helping these people build thought leadership platforms or finding their personal brand, right? And a lot of your clients have started a company and
Mhm.
grown that. Where I come in then is when a company starts to scale, a lot of the smaller companies that I'm brought in to work with have said, you know what? Right or wrong, when you're a small company, the brand of the company is the brand of the founder. It takes on the persona of the personal brand of the founder because that's who's making the decisions. That's who's the culture, basically, is what they want, how they act, how they move forward, and things like that. So when I start to reach with them, is I need to now build on what you've done with these particular, leaders and executives and say, okay, how do we take your personal brand and infuse it and make it part of the DNA of the organization? Because at some
Mhm.
point in time, you're going to want to leave or you're going to want to sell the company. And the company can't be you, and the culture and the brand can't be you. So, how do we make that transition if you're going to want to exit at some point from what you've built, right? So that's where I've worked with some companies on looking at how do you take the founder's brand and articulate it. And a lot of times that's hard work. And if they haven't worked with someone like you or know what that is, they need to, because we're going to build off of that. We're going to look at all the characteristics of the personal brand and we're going to say, okay, these are the ones that need to be timeless and need to be infused into the organization, right? So for me, I can talk about it, but I want to ask you, do you see, or how do you define the difference between a personal and an organizational brand? And then we can talk about how you make that transformation.
Yes. Well, there's some that come to mind immediately. Tom's shoes. So there's no Tom. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't a guy named Tom who made up Tom's shoes. It
right,
was Blake McCosey, and he has now since sold Tom's.
right.
And he wrote an amazing book called what was it called? Start Something Special, I think.
Okay.
Start Something That Lasts. I forget. Long, long ago, I ordered a pair of silver sparkly Toms, and
Yes.
I didn't like the size. It didn't fit me quite right. I returned them. They sent it back, and they sent this book with the
Ooh,
package. And I
wow.
was like, oh, perfect branding moment, right?
Yeah.
And I read that book back to front and I suggested it to so many people because we all want to start something that matters. That's the name of the book. Start Something That Matters.
Okay.
He infused so many ideas into what Tom's shoes became, but then he was able to leave, right? Because it wasn't called Blake McCosey shoes.
Right.
Now, So how can we take a founder's ideas, vision, and then leave? This is super interesting because you can
Mhm.
see companies where it went right and where it went wrong. And
Right.
I'm also thinking like Steve Jobs and Apple. It took a while for us to like embrace the new CEO, Tim.
Yep.
I don't even know his name, to be
Tim
honest.
Cook. Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
See? Yeah.
Yep.
Similarly, I love Kate Spade and all. I mean, I named my first business Step Brightly because of an email that the Kate Spade company sent out on New Year's that said, Step brightly into the new year. And I was
Nice.
like, that's the name of my company.
Yeah.
And then when she passed away and took her life, it was like, oh my God, right? What do we do now?
Right.
And while that company has recovered, I think that these are all moments to look at and to see, well, how can we actually take what's good within a founder's vision?
Hmm.
And I wouldn't say leave what's bad, but not highlight it anymore. So there's definitely going to have to be a plan in place for what to keep and what to let go and how to form that exit plan in a way, not just for the founder to be like, okay, I'm out, right? But also for how can we allow our target audience to see this in a way that we're evolving, not that we're
Right.
just leaving. So that's
Right.
going to be, maybe even a 1 to 2 year process, and it's got to be planned for. And my guess is that's where you come in too.
Yeah, so that's where I come in. And I think it's to me, it's super fun, right? And I never even thought about it until I had someone I was interviewing about branding. It was a woman out of Portland who had a recruiting talent agency. And she had really insightful thoughts for me on branding and how she wanted to build a legacy and have her company keep growing and things like that. So one of the first things she says was it was an aha wake up moment for her as the CEO of the company. She goes, when you first start and you have like 20, 25 employees, she's like, them all personally, right? And she goes, and you want them to like you, right? She's like, we want to have a happy working environment and culture. And so I want them, she's like, I took it personally. I wanted them to like me as the leader. She goes, as we got bigger and got more towards 50 employees, she goes, I don't talk to these employees anymore. I don't interact with every single person in the building. And she goes, and it was really hard for me to understand or to get beyond the fact that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a personal relationship with these people, but I need them to have a relationship to my company because I want them to be loyal
Mm.
and I want them to stick around. She goes, and then that's where I started to say, oh, I need managers. I need to hire the executives who are going to lead these new people coming in I need them to have a relationship with those, employees. So I talked to her about, well, gosh, well, what did you do? And this is what I've done subsequently with some clients is you talk to the leadership team who have been there a while to say, why did you want to work with this person? What did they say about the vision or the way they operated or anything that made you want to stay here and work with this company? And once we've articulated that, then, like we said, we look at all of these characteristics and vision and all that and say, all right, maybe we won't do it exactly the way that she did it as the founder, but we do want to have care in our core values,
Hmm.
or we do want to have fun. And here's what fun means at this company, and you create the core values and you create the brand and you talk about the culture. And then you start communicating it to every employee and everyone comes in. And like I said, you do these celebrations where you celebrate people who do a great job of building the brand. And then it transfers and it becomes organizational instead of just the personality of the founder. But it takes intention. And what I love is if I work with a CEO who's trying to do this process, I would love it if they walked in the door with everything you've done and just say, this is my brand, this is who I am. And then we can keep moving forward from there and try and build on that. But yeah, no, this has been great. I love the conversation we're having here about personal versus organizational and how one transfers into the other if they achieve their vision of building a business
There you
and
go.
wanted to move forward. So I'm going to one thing I would like to say first is thank you for all of those insights, but I want to end with one question that I ask all my guests, which is I absolutely love giving a shout out to small and mid-sized businesses who are just killing it when it comes to branding. So is there a company that you would nominate that just does what you think is a great job with their brand?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a small business in Chicago, and it is a balloon delivery business called
Oh,
Luft Balloons. And so Luft Balloons was founded by Elaine Free, gosh, 2013 maybe. I'm totally making a guess. But she has now become a client of mine. And so, of course, I love her. But what she does, and this is quote unquote the tagline of her company, bring the joy.
I love
So
that.
when we receive a balloon, it's joyful, it's happy, it's happiness in a helium balloon. And so if you go to her website or her Instagram, it is pictures of balloons and fun and balloon bursts and rainbow balloons that she, during the pandemic, had such a fun idea for her brand in that everything shut down, right? But you can
Yeah.
still blow up balloons and you can still go build a huge balloon burst or like a balloon canopy over the top of a building, whatever it is.
Yeah.
She went to RISD, which is Rhode Island School of Design.
Okay.
And so she has this really big and creative art background. So the way that she uses balloons for some of these bigger installations, it is an art installation. So during the pandemic, she would go and build these huge art installations, huge canopies of balloons in front of hospitals.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's going to make me cry, like the
Yeah.
entryway to the emergency room
Yeah.
as a thank you to the nurses and the first responders.
I
And it
love
like
that.
gives me goosebumps to think of that. And they're also a B Corp. I mean, so many things about who she is are intertwined into her business, but balloons bring the joy, and she, as the founder, brings the joy. The
Nice.
color scheme, the name of her company, all those pieces are really in alignment with that. So, yeah, so definitely go check out Luft Balloons.
I'm going to do that. That sounds awesome. So, well, anyway, thank you for that nomination. And Lisa, thank you for spending so much time with me today and sharing your insights on personal branding and building thought leadership platforms. So, if people want to work with you, hear your podcast, or grab your book, how can they find you?
Sure. Well, the book, Find Your Clear Vision, you can pick it up on Amazon. Podcast, same name, Find Your Clear Vision. And then you can find me at bebrightlisa.com. And there's a couple ways to work with me on the website. You can also download 4 of the first chapters of the book for free at bebrightlisa.com.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you again for being here. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you did too. So I hope the listener is enjoying as well. But thank you for joining us for this episode of the Turbo Branding Show. I hope you've been inspired to ignite your growth by leveraging your brand. And if you enjoyed the episode, I'd love it if you could help me build the show brand. So please share this episode and be sure to like, subscribe, and possibly leave a review. And if you or someone you know would be a great guest for the show, an inspiring founder, CEO, or an advisor, please let us know in the comments or connect with us via email. But thank you and stay tuned for our next episode.